previous video, we purchased the basics needed to host a website. Now it's time to upload our HTML and CSS. Before we can upload files and type our domain into a web browser, we first need to point the domain to our server. There are many ways to do this, but the most straightforward and conventional way is to visit your hosting company, find out what their name servers are, and then visit your domain registrar and point the domain. Once you've picked out your hosting, log into your account and find the name servers. Name servers are computers running special software that implement the name service protocol. These are the servers spread across the internet that help map domain names to numeric IP addresses and other addressing mechanisms. Depending on your hosting company and domain registrar, the interfaces for managing the DNS will look very different, but they will all work the same and operate on the same protocols and principles. Pointing a domain can take several hours, sometimes up to a day or two, because once the new domain record has been created, it has to propagate to all the other DNS servers across the internet, so that when anyone in the world types in your domain, the request gets routed to the right server. If it sounds complex, that's because it is, but fortunately we don't need to know much about it in order to create websites. Now, while you're waiting a few hours for your domain to propagate, something you can do in the meantime is upload your files to your server. To do this, I'm going to introduce you to another protocol beyond HTTP, and that is FTP, which is an acronym that stands for File Transfer Protocol. Using FTP, you can quickly transfer files to different computers and servers over the internet. And there's even ways to do this securely using the SFTP protocol. To transfer files via FTP, we'll need to use an FTP client to talk to our server. CyberDuck, available at cyberduck.ch, is a free FTP client for Mac OS X. This is the client I'll be demonstrating in. If you're on Windows, I recommend you use FileZilla, available at filezilla-project.org. Either FTP client, and really any other FTP client, should be able to get the job done, so search around the web a bit and try different clients to find out what you like best. Now, I've already downloaded CyberDuck, and I'm going to put in the credentials to the server space that we've purchased. So I'm just going to open a connection here, and we already have the domain put in there, and there's the password, and I'm just going to click Connect. And now that we're connected to the server, we can go ahead and upload our files. When a user types in our domain without any file path, most servers will immediately try to direct them to a file called index.html. If this file doesn't exist, it will default to a few others before it just shows the file index of your server or some other default page. Rather than take your chances, it's a good idea to just call your root HTML file index.html. So let's go ahead and upload our files. In the Finder here, I'm just going to drag and drop these files over into CyberDuck, and right away they'll start uploading. And this will take just a second here. And now that our files are on our server, and our domain has been pointed and propagated, we can go ahead and switch over to a web browser here and type in our URL, which in this case is mysurfingsite.com. And when we go ahead and just refresh this page, you can see that we now have our website. And that's it. Now, just so that you can see what happens when you don't have a page called index.html, let's go ahead and try renaming our page. So I'll switch back to CyberDuck here, and I'll just go ahead and rename index to something like mypage.html. And once that's been changed on the server, we can switch back to our browser and refresh the page. And you can see that our page has switched over to a default page served up by the HTTP server software that we're using, which in this case is Apache, a popular open source solution. Over the past several videos, I've shown you the traditional route of creating a website. In the next video, we'll look at some newer options.